Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with another Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord developer blog video. Before we get started today, I just wanted to address a few things, because this, being the series of mine that reaches the widest audience, I figure I'd mention it here so that more people will hear it. But I just wanted to apologize for my absence the last few days. I've been really sick. Normally it's not an issue unless it affects my throat or my voice, which in this case it did. I don't know what it was, but there is something going around in my area, and apparently people are dying from it. It wasn't nearly that bad for me, but I was bedridden for like 2 or 3 days, and I did have a pretty severely sore throat. It's starting to recover, but I'm gonna kind of ease back into it, so this is gonna be the only video you guys get out of me today. I'll probably post 2 videos tomorrow because I'm already a little bit ahead on our Total War Attila stuff, and that would have gone up tomorrow anyways, so I'll post that, and I'll probably record one more video if my throat's feeling up to it. But yeah, we're gonna kind of ease back into things. Sorry for those of you who were waiting on like the Anno Domini stuff or Clash of Kings. You're gonna have to wait until the weekend, but we'll get back into the swing of things pretty quick here. So anyways, we're checking out the developer blog for January 25th 2018, and this one is a discussion on conversational animations. So greetings, warriors of Calradia. In this week's blog, we would like to introduce you to an improvement we have made to the dialogue system in Bannerlord, conversational animations. Personalities play a large role in the politics of Calradia. Some lords may approve of your course of action, while others may find it to be distasteful. Forcing the player to make conscious choices based on this creates an additional layer in the strategy aspect of the campaign, and adds overall depth to the role-playing element of our games. Discerning between those who will offer support in times of need and those who are likely to cause issues is a relatively subtle part of our games, but those who pay close attention to their relationships and plan accordingly will often have an easier time when plotting their rise to power. Now that is, I think, giving Warband a little bit too much credit. The way personalities work in Warband, at least for lords, is essentially there is, I think, like the top so many, I'm not sure the exact number, but you basically have them randomized where the top like 4 or 5 lords in each faction will be one of each personality type, or I think there's like 6 to 8 personality types, so it might be like one for each, but effectively they're all random. The game does it in a way where it tries to kind of spread them out and make sure that even by chance you don't get all honorable or like all dishonorable. But like, Marshall, I always forget what they are, but they range from like honorable and kind-hearted to like dishonorable and what the hell do they call it? Oh, debauched. Debauched is like the worst one. And so anyways, they're more or less random. Although it's weighted in a way where some lords will be honorable more often than not, and some will be dishonorable more often than not. Anyways, the point is, it's not that hard to figure out which ones are which. And if you play as an honorable lord, which if you're not role-playing, you are very much behooved to do, because effectively you're making the game harder on yourself if you're being dishonorable. Because if you are honorable, you gain free relationship points with any other lords who are also honorable. And that makes it very easy to tell which lords are honorable, because if you have never met them and you have a high relation with them already, then you can assume that they're also honorable, assuming you are. It's not true of the opposite. If you're dishonorable lords don't like you any more than they would otherwise. So there's really a good way to do it and a not good way to do it, which I don't necessarily like. Obviously it rewards one playstyle over another, and I generally go for that playstyle anyways because I find it more fun to, be the good guy, have rules, and not just kind of run around in this lawless world doing whatever I want. But at the same time, you're handicapping yourself if you're playing a different way, and that's fine if that's the way you want to play, but it does make it a little bit harder. So anyways, they basically tip you off to these different relationship types, either with what I just mentioned with the relations with honorable lords, or if they're not honorable, or even if they are, they basically have a different response for each like dialogue thing. So for example, the first time you meet them, when you are just like a lowly peasant, depending on what you get as a response from them, you can tell immediately what type of lord they are. I don't remember any of them off the top of my head, but you can look them up because they're canned responses, and so a martial lord will respond the same way every time you meet a martial lord for the first time, or a dishonorable lord. For example, I think the debauched ones say something to the effect of like, normally I would kill a peasant for daring to approach me, or whatever, something to that effect. But it's very easy to figure out which ones are which, and to predict how they will behave, because anybody who is not honorable will get pissed off if you give anybody else in your kingdom land. And so basically playthroughs boil down to play an honorable character, recruit honorable lords, give honorable lords land. And that's basically it, because the dishonorable lords will be too much work to keep happy, so inevitably they will leave. So you don't want to give them land, because they're eventually going to leave with it. Now, there's ways around that. You can give them villages, because villages can't leave kingdoms without their castle, or their associated castles and towns leaving too. But I don't want to get too far into this. We've already gone a lot further than I intended to. Anyways, let's just move on and leave it at this is giving the game maybe a little bit more credit than it deserves in that regard. So developing relationships with NPC was, and still is, quite straightforward. That's sort of true. Complete a mission for them and they like you more. Support their claim and they like you more. However, it was often hard to form any sort of emotional bond to these static and lifeless characters, and ultimately conversations with NPCs always end up feeling a little bland. In previous Mount and Blade games, your standing with a lord was shown through an information window, which could be viewed during conversations, and while this worked as a clear and simple way of presenting information to the player, it's something we feel had room for improvement. Yeah, certainly. So, in Bannerlord, we wanted players to feel... Oh, that might be too far. I gotta remember that there's like a banner above this. In Bannerlord, we wanted players to feel immersed in the world and to become attached to or despise the different characters they will meet in their travels. We decided that one way we could achieve this would be to make a small addition to the conversation system to inject some personality into the characters. In Bannerlord, an NPC's behavior is heavily influenced by their personality traits, but it's still somewhat dynamic in that it can be affected by their current circumstances. We developed a simple system which sets animations to the characters you're talking to based on their personality, among other things. To do this, the game looks at the NPC's personality traits, some situational parameters, and aspects of the NPC's relation to the player to choose appropriate dialogue animations. It isn't anything too fancy, and it doesn't include any lip syncing or voice acting. However, we feel that it helps to make the world feel more alive. Okay, so let's see. Personality traits, situational parameters, and relation to the player. Okay, so here is a character, let's call him Yaga, who is unimpressed that you were unable to complete a quest he gave you. And so he's giving us like a rather stern look with his hands on his hips. He's obviously unimpressed, as they said. The guy standing behind him is kind of giving you a dirty look as well. And here is Yaga again, but after you have successfully completed his quest. Now he's got a big dumb grin on his face and he's like nodding. Okay. So, this is great and all, but it depends on how contextual it is. Because, for example, if this is just going to play, if it's going to play this animation for every character every time you fail a quest, then it doesn't really mean much. It's just a little bit more, you know, contextual, or not contextual, a little bit more, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. But anyways, the thing is, like, if you were already friendly with a lord and this looked different, that would be one thing. But if you're friendly with the lord and they give you this look versus if you're not friendly with the lord and they give you that look, then this is all kind of meaningless. It needs to be a little bit more contextual in that a lord that you're friendly with should be a little bit more forgiving, or at least appear more forgiving of a failed quest than somebody who hates you, who should be like very, very upset that you failed a quest for them. And then the same of, you know, passing a quest. Somebody who's a good friend of yours should be very pleased with it. Somebody who hates you and gives you a quest and you pass it should maybe be like begrudgingly acceptive of the fact that you passed it, like not pleased that you succeeded, but, you know, sort of impressed that you got the job done even though they hate you, kind of thing. But yeah, again, this doesn't really give us enough information to know how far one way or the other this is going to go. Also, I hope that this is all very, like, I mean, we know it's a work in progress, but there's a shitload of clipping happening here, so hopefully they take care of that. So just as with much of the rest of the game, we designed the system to be as moddable as possible. Animations are initiated directly from the dialogue, so modders will be able to easily override the animations used in existing dialogues and use existing animations for any conversations they create. It will be possible for them to add their own animations to the system, which we think opens up a lot of fun possibilities. We feel that this small addition will help to make the world feel more immersive and add some extra character to the various NPCs that populate Calradia. It's only a minor change, but it's something that works for our style of game, and we're sure that the modding community will find some inventive uses for it. In next week's blog, we will be speaking with graphic artist Oscar Saral. Oscar is the lead of our art team and oversees all of the visual aspects of the game. If you have any questions you'd like to ask him, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so before we end, one thing I want to talk about is, and this is more just discussing, not even speculation, just sort of having a discussion here, as long as my voice will hold out, is that they like to sort of base things on personality traits, and I don't think that that's a great way to do it. One thing, and if you talk to people who, for example, play a lot of like tabletop style games, more like not like, you know, the little figurine ones, but like Dungeons and Dragons or things like that, where you have like a character sheet and you have a dungeon master or a game master. One way to play characters more true to the character is, rather than having like personality traits, is you have like motivations, character motivations. Because, for example, lords that are like selfish, like if their trait is just selfish, it's kind of vague, and so is like in the case of a game like this, he would just always behave selfishly, and that's not really true of real people. Real people are a little bit more complex than that. For example, instead you could give him a motivation like he desires land, and so if you recruited this lord to your kingdom, as long as you gave him land and you gave him enough of it, he would be happy regardless of sort of everything else. To an extent, obviously, you couldn't treat him like absolute dirt and then give him enough land and, you know, it'd be fine. But to a degree, as long as you were, you know, helping him complete that main desire of his, he would be more or less content. And so I think something like that, like motivations for characters, are more important than personality traits in general. Now, you could have both, and that would probably make the characters even more complex. To what degree you could create a system that can handle all that, you know, would be challenging. But I think in general, having motivations and traits, or if you're going to only go with one, I think the motivations are more important. Because from those motivations, you can kind of glean what somebody's personality is. Obviously, if their motivations are very self-centered, then they're a selfish person. But you know, people have very complex motivations most of the time. And so I think, you know, even if every character only had like 3 motivations, it would tell you more about their personality than, say, like, you know, a single personality trait. Anyways, that's just a little aside, and I suppose we'll leave it here for now because my throat's starting to get scratchy. So it looks like next week, well, I say next week, but it's going to be Tuesday that you guys see this, so in like 2 or 3 days, we'll be talking about this graphic artist here, and hopefully they'll throw us another little tidbit of information, preferably about the single-player campaign, but graphic artist, I don't know about that. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time talking about some Bannerlord with you, as I always do, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here for the next video.